The tension in the room was palpable as Brooklyn Ellis stood before her father, his formidable presence casting a long shadow over the entire office. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on her conscience, leading her voice to tremble slightly as she confronted him. Preston handed the company over to Camden. Brooklyn's tone carried a blend of disbelief and frustration, each word laced with emotions she could barely contain. Her father, sitting imperially behind his grand mahogany desk, didn't falter. His attention remained with the stack of documents before him, eyes momentarily flickering up to meet hers. "Camden is my son, Brooklyn," he said, almost detached, as if the pronouncement itself was final. "It's his birthright." The walls seemed to inch closer, suffocating Brooklyn within the confines of the room. Determined to hold herself together, she clutched the back of the nearest chair, planting her feet firmly on the ground. "His birthright," she echoed, her voice rising with both incredulity and the need to be heard. "I've committed years of my life to this company. I've immersed myself in every facet of the business. Camden? He's indifferent about the company's success." Her father's reply was serene yet unyielding. "Brooklyn, this is about heritage, not passion. Tradition demands that the son carries the torch." Brooklyn Ellis, a poised and aspirational 30-year-old, had spent her life tagging along the sidelines of her father's ambitions. Preston Ellis was not just her father, but also a shrewd patriarch, one whose authority seldom wavered. He had built Ellis trade partners from the ground up, etching every milestone with dedication. Observing him had ignited within Brooklyn a burning desire not merely to contribute but to one day lead. Years of relentless preparation had sculpted her resolve. With honors in business management and an exhaustive collection of experiences in the field, internships, practical engagements in logistics, and strategic innovations, Brooklyn had become invaluable to the enterprise. Preston frequently praised her insights, often remarking, "Sharpness like yours, Brooklyn, suits the CFO's office." Yet, despite the compliments, she never once heard words celebrating her potential as a CEO. The role of the company's chief lay reserved for Camden, her younger brother. Camden Ellis was Brooklyn's antithesis in many ways. While she thrived on exertion and meticulousness, Camden was the epitome of ease, constantly gliding by on charm and minimal exertion. His years in school painted a picture of mediocrity, overshadowed by sports, social escapades, and a carefree attitude towards academics. And yet, Preston's hope never waned. "Camden only needs time to mature into his responsibilities," he reassured Brooklyn, whenever she voiced her concerns about his laissez-faire approach to work. These conversations left her exasperated, propelling her to believe her diligence would eventually tip the scales in her favor. However, the stark realization hit her, perhaps violently, now, standing in her father's office as he dismissed her dreams with practiced nonchalance. Camden's sudden promotion swept through the company corridors, leaving behind an awkward stillness. Colleagues who valued Brooklyn's contributions acknowledged the situation with uncomfortable smiles and muted sympathies. Even those who favored Camden found themselves uneasy about his readiness. Every time Camden faltered, or when a derelict attitude brushed over critical meetings, Brooklyn fumed silently, bound by her duty to see the company thrive. The imagery of Camden lounging casually at his desk, indifferent to the company's operational pulse, clouded her thoughts. It seemed he'd already placed the crown unearned upon his head. A climactic moment arrived unexpectedly as Brooklyn walked past the glass-walled conference room. The room reverberated with rising tempers as Camden confronted a senior manager. "Camden, this shipment delay is costing us dearly," the manager implored, frustration dripping from his every word. "We're on the brink of losing a pivotal client. We must act swiftly." From her vantage point, Brooklyn watched her brother recline listlessly, his eyes skirting the urgent gaze of the manager. His cryptic response, "I'm handling it," ushered waves of disappointment that crashed over her sense of justice. It was clear, this was about more than just lineage or favoritism. Camden's inexperience and lack of dedication posed a real threat, reinforcing Brooklyn's conviction. Her resolve solidified. She would not stand by while everything she had ever worked for was jeopardized by complacency masked as privilege. Under the dim kitchen lights, Brooklyn Ellis sat hunched over her laptop, spreadsheets and reports glowing on the screen before her. Her fingers traced the edges of the documents that detailed the slow unraveling of Ellis trade partners. Each delay, each dissatisfied client, was like a pinprick in the air around her, rapidly deflating the company's golden image. The realization that her brother Camden's tenure was threatening to sink their father's legacy roiled within her, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Tradition's blinders had left their father, Preston Ellis, ignorant to the crisis at hand. Brooklyn shut the laptop with a sigh, leaning back in her chair. Her temples throbbed in a rhythmic reminder of the impending conflict she dreaded yet knew was unavoidable. This wasn't simply about personal ambition, it was about preserving the future of the company and all those who depended on it. Under the still hum of her kitchen, she picked up her phone and reached out for the steady guidance she knew she would find only with Selena, her former mentor. "Selena, I need your advice," Brooklyn began, her voice tentative but resolute. "I'm about to launch a battle that feels unwinnable." Selena's response was immediate, her tone unwavering. "That's exactly why it's worth the fight." Within a month of Camden stepping into the executive's shoes, the office corridors hummed with the whispers of concern. Once reliable schedules now crumbled under missed deadlines and supply chain chaos. Long-term partners, whispering their doubts in boardrooms, were no longer shy about testing the waters with competitors. Yet Preston, clinging stubbornly to his belief in Camden's potential, dismissed these troubles as necessary growing pains over family dinners. "Learning takes time, Brooklyn," he stated one evening, waving off her concerns like pesky flies. "How much time, Dad?" Brooklyn pushed, her voice edged with urgency. "Do you even see how precarious our situation has become? We're inches away from losing a major client." Across the table, Camden's casual attitude infuriated her further. "Relax, Brooklyn. I have everything under control." Like the mishandled shipment to Denver, she snapped back, unable to mask her disbelief, her fork clattering against her plate. Preston's eyebrows knitted together sternly. "Let's discuss this at the office," he decreed, ending the confrontation. The room buzzed with unresolved tension, leaving Brooklyn to retrieve solace in the only corner she found Selena. Selena's phone rang, her voice a soothing balm as she answered. "Just how bad is it, Brooklyn?" "Worse than I imagined," Brooklyn confessed, beginning to pace. "Camden is in way over his head and Preston refuses to see it. He's wrapped up in tradition, utterly blind to the damage." "So, what are you doing about it?" Selena's question pierced through the uncertainty, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "I don't know," Brooklyn hesitated. "He made it clear long ago that he doesn't see me as leadership material. If I confront him, he'll simply brush me off." Selena's tone softened, but held firm. "You're more capable than anyone else, Brooklyn. Years of hard work weren't for nothing. Don't let his stubbornness cage you. Prove him wrong." The simplicity of her advice resonated, echoing in the silent air long after the call ended. Proving him wrong seemed deceptively simple, yet every fiber of her being knew the daunting feat it posed. The following week at work, the tension reached a boiling point. Brooklyn was deeply engrossed in a financial report when Javier, a sales manager, knocked gently on her door, his expression grave. "Brooklyn," he began, closing the door behind him, "can we talk?" She nodded, gesturing for him to take a seat. "What's on your mind, Javier?" "It's Camden," he confessed, barely above a whisper. "He skipped another client meeting today. When I followed up, he shrugged it off, but this account is crucial for us." Brooklyn leaned forward, folding her hands as the weight of Javier's words deepened the furrows in her brow. "Does Dad know?" Javier hesitated, a flicker of discomfort passing over his face. "I mentioned it last week. He seemed convinced Camden will figure it out." Brooklyn exhaled, the burden of looming crises weighing heavily on her chest, squeezing tighter with each passing second. Brooklyn Ellis sat in her office, the midday sun casting shadows across the stack of reports before her. The gravity of the situation weighed her down like a pressure she couldn't shake off. She had to do something. Her father, Preston, had entrusted her brother, Camden, with running Ellis Trade Partners, and it was spiraling out of control. Brooklyn knew she couldn't simply watch in silence while the family legacy crumbled. As Javier, one of the loyal managers, confided the latest debacle involving Camden, Brooklyn's resolve solidified. She thanked Javier, his concern reflecting her own. After he departed, she sifted through every document she had: finances, client feedback, operational inefficiencies, sculpting a comprehensive presentation. However, her aim wasn't to highlight Camden's shortcomings. It was to illuminate a rejuvenating path for the company, one she was equipped to guide. In a late-night call with Selena, her longtime mentor, Brooklyn revealed her plan. Selena's voice was a steady current of encouragement. "You've got everything covered, Brooklyn." Despite Selena's confidence, anxiety twined through Brooklyn's thoughts. But will it convince my father? She wondered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Forget what he might say," Selena insisted. "This is about the firm, the team who makes it thrive, and the legacy you're shaping." With each passing day, Brooklyn sharpened her approach. Arranging for a family meeting, she knew both Preston and Camden needed to hear this message. The evening prior, she lay in bed, sleepless, her mind conjuring every scenario: dismissal, confrontation, failure. Yet beneath it all was a deep certainty. Not acting would be akin to letting everything perish. When she entered the formal dining room the following night, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Her father and Camden awaited, blending auras of curiosity and impatience. Brooklyn approached with careful poise, the weight of her plan nestled inside the folder in her hands. "Thank you both for being here," she began, her voice betraying none of the turmoil within. "There are critical developments regarding the business that we need to discuss." The room transformed into a charged arena, her father's perpetual seat at the table's head casting an air of authority, while Camden's casual slouch signaled his usual disregard. Brooklyn stood opposite, clutching her folder, a conduit for both her nerves and determination. "Brooklyn," her father finally broke the charged silence, his tone expectant. "You've called us. Go ahead." Steeling herself with a breath, Brooklyn met their gaze. "I've reviewed our operations thoroughly," she started, her voice unyielding. "It's evident that crisis looms. We face delayed deliveries, fleeing clients, and a tarnished reputation. Without quick intervention, the consequences could be dire." Furrows etched across Preston's forehead, though he remained silent. Camden, however, scoffed dismissively. "You're exaggerating, Brooklyn. It's not as dire as you're claiming." Turning his way, Brooklyn's eyes locked on his with unshakable resolve. "Camden, we've lost several long-standing clients recently. One account was with us for over 10 years. Does that not count as a major issue?" The confidence in his smirk flickered, though still he remained silent. Brooklyn laid the report in front of Preston, gesturing to her well-marked notes. "This outlines the financial damage, and here," she continued, presenting another sheet, "is feedback from clients who left, issues like poor communication, missed deadlines, and absent leadership." As Preston absorbed the reports, his expression darkened. "Why wasn't I informed?" "No one wishes to displease you," Brooklyn replied, eyes steady. "They fear honesty might cost them, but I don't." Preston leaned back, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. "And what exactly is this truth?" "Camden isn't ready for this role," Brooklyn declared firmly. "If we continue this facade, the company won't withstand the loss." From the sudden scraping of a chair, Camden stood abruptly, anger painting his face crimson. "This is absurd, Brooklyn. You've always been envious because I'm leading and you're not. Just admit it." "Envious?" Brooklyn's voice rose, a wave of indignation coloring her words. "Do you assume power is my ultimate goal? My motives are rooted in the health of the company and safeguarding our employees' livelihoods." Underneath the golden glow of the chandelier, tension simmered between Brooklyn Ellis and her brother Camden as their father, Preston, observed from the head of the table. Brooklyn's words hung in the air, probing deep into the family dynamics. Her message was clear. The company needed rescuing from the brink of chaos, a chaos bred by neglect rather than malice. "You're not at fault, Camden," Brooklyn began, softening the edge of her previous appeal. Silence stretched as Camden's hands dropped from fisted frustration to relaxed acceptance. "It's not about blame, it's about timing. We need swift action to uphold what Dad has dedicated his life to." Preston's eyes, once inscrutable, held a flicker of recognition as Brooklyn carefully slid a folder across the table. "This plan outlines necessary reforms, enhancing client communication, refining operations, and rebuilding trust. It's an immediate roadmap to recovery." Confronted by the compelling clarity of the plan, Preston flipped through the documents, the stiff tension in his jaw contrasting the weariness clouding his gaze. When he spoke, his tone carried a reluctant acceptance. "The proposal is sound," he conceded, maintaining Brooklyn's fierce eye contact. "But leadership transcends strategic planning, Brooklyn. It requires unwavering responsibility." Brooklyn lifted her chin, meeting her father's challenge with conviction. "I have embraced responsibility my entire life," she asserted. "You've witnessed my dedication to the company firsthand. I've earned the chance to demonstrate my capability." A heavy stillness consumed the room, weighted by unyielding tradition and burgeoning change. Preston's gaze shifted to Camden. "What are your thoughts, son?" Caught off guard, Camden hesitated momentarily. "You're actually considering this?" he stammered, shock evident. "Yes," Preston replied softly, acknowledging Brooklyn's insight. "She speaks the truth, continuing as we are spells trouble for the business." Camden sucked in a quiet breath, silently grappling with realization before conceding. "All right then. Let her proceed." Preston turned back to her, his face lined with past and future. "Brooklyn, the opportunity is yours. But remember, proving your worth won't ever end." Brooklyn's heart thrummed a beat of resolute joy. "I understand, Dad. I'll ensure our legacy remains intact." Departing the discussion room, Brooklyn harbored a cocktail of emotions, triumph colored with uncertainty. Winning acceptance was just the voting ticket, the election battle lay ahead. In the frenetic weeks that followed, Brooklyn dove headlong into her role. Navigating leadership meant marathon hours, strategic decisions, and constructing trust anew, not just with her father, but company-wide. Her initial move involved assembling department heads, confronting the residue of Camden's oversight. Their reluctance to speak was overt at first, their wariness a tangible barrier. Patiently, Brooklyn unearthed solutions, paving pathways out of confusion, and slowly, credibility rekindled its glow. Yet at home, the landscape was more multifaceted. Preston's countenance coupled pride with the tentativeness of adjusting long-held beliefs. One quiet evening, Brooklyn found him silently studying a faded family photograph. "You've accomplished much," Preston remarked, without lifting his eyes from the sepia memories. Unprepared for the acknowledgement, Brooklyn responded softly, "Thank you, Dad." Setting the image aside, Preston met her gaze full on. "Your capabilities were always clear to me. It's challenging to recalibrate perspectives ingrained over a lifetime." Silent understanding passed between them. "It's about what's necessary for the company, Dad, and for us all." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "Indeed, it is." Camden, however, remained in his own quagmire. The fracture of transitioning roles left him visibly absent until Brooklyn found him in the break room, his demeanor a blend of insecurity and discomfort as he grasped a coffee mug. "You should never feel the need to hide, Camden," Brooklyn spoke gently, wanting to soothe. "This focuses on the company's survival, not on personal shortcomings." Leaning his back against the counter, Camden exhaled heavily. "It's just a sense of letting everyone down, Dad most of all. There's no fault in wanting to support our father, only in not attempting to adapt," Brooklyn assured, sensing the heavy mantle lifting. As the golden hues of dawn kissed the city skyline, Brooklyn Ellis found herself in quiet reflection. For the first time, the air was clear between her and her brother, Camden. "You didn't let anyone down," she assured him, sensing an invisible weight lift from his shoulders. You were thrust into a role that didn't suit you. That's not your failing." His gaze softened, surprise coloring his voice. "Do you really believe that?" "Absolutely," Brooklyn replied, sincerity anchoring her words. "You have so many talents, Camden. Leadership just doesn't happen to be one of them, and that's perfectly okay. It doesn't define your value." There was an intimacy in their exchange, a peeling away of years of pretenses. For the first time in forever, Camden spoke candidly about the immense pressure he felt, the missteps, and the overwhelming burden of expectations. As their conversation drew to a close, a newfound lightness enveloped him, even if he hesitated to express it fully. With the passing of weeks, the transformation within Ellis Trade Partners was undeniable. 2 major clients had returned to the fold, and new operational frameworks erased the prior mismanagement. Brooklyn's father, Preston, began to trust her implicitly, stepping back from daily oversight. Meanwhile, Camden found his niche in marketing, his creativity and charisma flourishing unburdened by leadership's demands. Every evening, Brooklyn sat at her desk, poring over the day's events with a blend of relief and fatigue. The path hadn't been smooth, but she knew deep down that this was her rightful place. 6 months on, the company was reborn. Systems hummed with efficiency, client trust solidified, and the employees thrived in the nurturing environment she'd cultivated. Each success, no matter how small, reaffirmed her leadership and self-worth. The insecurities that had haunted her, the relentless need to prove herself, they were dissipating. This wasn't about earning her father's approval or overshadowing Camden anymore. It was about embracing her passion and excelling at it. Preston, too, had transformed. No longer lingering over Brooklyn's decisions, his trust in her leadership was steadfast. He visited sparingly, bringing with him curiosity and quiet pride instead of scrutiny. One afternoon, he lingered by her office doorway, a rare occurrence that spoke volumes. "I was reviewing old client records," he reflected, a note of amazement infusing his voice. "You revived a client we lost over 5 years ago. I couldn't have achieved that." Brooklyn glowed with a warmth she didn't quite anticipate. "Thank you, Dad. It was challenging, but I knew it was worth every effort." His expression gentled, pride evident. "You've achieved things here I never imagined possible." Those words carried a deeper satisfaction than any business success, embodying the respect she'd long sought. This journey wasn't merely about company numbers, it was about the acknowledgement and respect she had craved. Camden thrived in his realm too, his innovative ideas revitalizing the marketing landscape. Frequenting Brooklyn's office with fresh campaign pitches, their exchanges brimmed with collegial spirit. No longer adversaries, they forged ahead as allies. At home, a newfound lightness pervaded. Family dinners radiated warmth, absent of prior tension, as Preston engaged with Brooklyn's insights in an unprecedented manner. Her mother, once silent, now actively praised and supported her daughter's endeavors. One evening, as Brooklyn strolled through the quiet office, the glow of the city's lights twinkling beyond the conference room windows, a sense of ownership embraced her. Ellis Trade Partners was hers, not by heritage alone, but through merit. Recalling the woman she was 6 months prior, filled with anger, invisibility, and self-doubt, Brooklyn realized that version of herself had vanished. In her place stood someone renewed, confident, and unafraid to battle for her rightful space. She knew this was merely the beginning. Challenges would continue to rise, as would mountains, but Brooklyn had proven to herself that she could face them day by day. Her family was healing, the company prospering, and for the first time, Brooklyn lived the life she had once only imagined. As Brooklyn Ellis left the office, the cool night air wrapped around her like an old friend, whispering promises of new beginnings. Turning the lights off and securing the lock on the door, she paused to take in the quiet stillness. It was a moment of profound peace, a testament to the battles she had fought and won, not by chance, but through her sheer will and determination. This triumph wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was the life she had painstakingly crafted for herself, a destiny shaped by choices, perseverance, and unyielding resolve. Standing there in the dim glow of the city lights, Brooklyn savored the journey that had brought her here and the endless possibilities that awaited her on the horizon. As she walked into the night, anticipation coursed through her veins, knowing her future was bright, full of potential and promise.